Yo guys, what's up? It's me back again with some more DayZ 0.60. This is the current experimental build which is on the test servers right now, which I would say you can go and play right now just by updating to the beta build, but that'd be kind of lying because if you're doing it during any sort of normal waking hours, you will not be able to get on because there are only 2,500 slots and there are many more than that who are trying to currently get access to this like alpha state of the game. And well, basically while the gameplay in the background it is captured in 0.60, it's not going to be super entertaining, but I'll cut around to different things that I did in the game just to show you what's going on. I'm going to render this video out at 60 FPS 1080p so you can see, you know, what I saw in a sense. Obviously when I'm going above 60 FPS you're not seeing that because YouTube doesn't let you do that, but there will be a frame rate indicator in the top left corner that should have captured from my capture card or whatever, so you'll be able to see my active, or like my actual frame rate in any of the scenes. And while there are quite a few, well, there's not quite a few, but there's a few times where the frame rate dips below 60 FPS. There aren't a ton, but you'll be able to see those obviously in the video itself since it won't be 60 FPS. But yeah, so basically I just want to go over some of my observations in my brief like half hour that I got to play the game on this experimental build, since obviously not a ton of people are getting access to it because it's extremely hard to get into right now. Obviously everyone can download it, but actually getting a space on the server is painfully difficult. In fact, when I actually got a chance to get onto a server, it was at about 3:30 in the morning and one of the servers had just shut down and restarted, and I just happened to get lucky when joining it and I got a slot while it was filling up, and by the time I left, 20 minutes later, all the servers were full again, so I didn't actually get to, go back in or whatever. And I didn't even try because, hell, it was like 4 in the morning by the time that happened, so I kind of needed to get the fuck to sleep. So for starters, this footage was recorded a couple of days ago, and I know they've done some minor tweaks since then, but I haven't had a chance to play with them, and from what I've heard, there's nothing major, and there's nothing really even that's publicly available as to what they've changed. It's just sort of speculation. But yeah, without further ado, blah blah, I cannot talk today, this is fucking fantastic. Without further ado, let's get right into the news, guys. Kill me. But anyways, so first thing you'll notice right off the bat is the game is running really fucking smooth, assuming you've got decent hardware. I had it at a mixture of like medium and high settings. There were certain things that I heard turned off just because, I just had them turned off previously, and there were also a couple optimizations that I had left over in my game's config files from before, when I used to play on the stable 0.59, and since that branch still runs absolutely awful, at least client side. I had tons of sort of optimizations in terms of like render distance and things like that sort of may have been affecting this video a little bit, but from what I've heard, a lot of those things don't matter anymore. So yeah, basically right off the bat, what I noticed was that even once I was getting into higher populated areas, or area that had where a lot of objects, a lot of things being drawn, and things that would normally have basically hit your performance to the points where the game was unplayable, it was not the case anymore. Now granted, while I was running through Cherno, there were a few times where it was dropping into the mid to high 40s, but granted, compared to the old high teens to mid 20s that it was hitting at its lowest before this patch, that is absolutely a phenomenal improvement. Granted, they have a long way to go, as there was a ton of stuttering and things where I would round a corner, it would hang for a moment and then jump back up to 80 FPS for no apparent reason. Granted, there are a lot of things that could explain this that might not even have to do with the game, but considering that there's plenty of evidence to suggest that this is not a localized incident on the community hub of DayZ, I would say that it's probably not me, and considering I don't have issues like this in other games, I would say it's more likely than not the state of this patch, which, granted, it's still, with these little hitches every once in a while, the game is still far more playable than it ever has been before. It's still, obviously there's room for improvement, and this is the first iteration of the DirectX 11 renderer from Bohemia, so there's of course going to be issues, and considering this is the alpha of an alpha, that even, more so magnifies the issues at hand. So regardless, what I see here has made me extremely happy with what they've done. I mean, honestly, it's taken them way too long to get to this point, since obviously the initial release date of this new rendering technology was supposed to be Q1 of last year, not this year, guys. If you go to their little thinger, their planner on the, I don't even know if it's still up, but they had a thing where they had planned out what they were going to be doing each quarter of each year for the development cycle of DayZ. This patch that has come out now has been, delayed for over a year now, which is absolutely ridiculous. But then again, it's no surprise considering DayZ's development cycle has been absolutely terrible. I mean, I would sort of explain it or describe it as like it has the momentum of a potato with square wheels. It kind of just flops forward every once in a while. I mean, assuming the potato had enough energy to even drive those wheels, it just sort of jumps forward every once in a while with, minor little improvements, and then eventually they're going to have a complete game, and they're like, well, it's only year 3 of the 3-year development cycle. I'm like, well, bitch, you got to finish the game in less than 12 months then. So I get fucking luck, dude. But, yeah, so a few things that I did notice. As much as the frame rate had improved, the smoothness of the gameplay was obviously apparent. It was visually smooth, I should say. There were issues with things like status updates not changing. So when you have your inventory open and it shows the status of your character, you're hungry, you're thirsty, whatever the hell, those take quite a bit to update, which obviously is a server-side thing. Your client communicating with the server and, telling you, oh, I just drank a bottle of water, I should no longer be thirsty, or whatever the case may be. That's still quite delayed. Granted, that was an issue in pretty much every iteration of DayZ up until this point, but it's still there. Granted, this patch was not supposed to address those issues, but it's still something that's there. Might be even more prominent now, especially with all the people constantly knocking on the door for every server. It has definitely increased the amount of sort of actual communication lag between the server and your client. There are things like doors which actually do work. Like, you walk up to them, you hit the button, they open right away. There is no delay on that. It feels snappy, and from what I've never had an issue where I'll walk up to a door, it'll open client side, and then all of a sudden close again or anything like that. That's never been an issue, so that seems to be working fine. Maybe they just handle door open shut based off of your client rather than server, although they have to update it at some point, obviously, or else there will be a lot of discrepancy and people running through doors. So I'm not sure how that works entirely, but quite honestly, it's been pretty freaking great up until this point, so I can't complain there. Another thing I noticed was quite often, well, not even quite often, I think it had happened 2 or 3 times during the recording of this video. I would basically be running for a short while, and all of a sudden, boom, I would teleport back to somewhere I was maybe a minute and a half ago. I would just sort of, like, you wouldn't slide back, there was nothing like that, you would just teleport, you just pop and you'd be somewhere else all of a sudden, which is kind of weird. I also was shot at near the end of my little session in 0.60, and I'm not sure if it just, the dude was terrible at aiming, which is entirely possible, and he didn't hit me, or if it just never registered, because it seemed like the guy was right next to me. I saw the flash. It seems like there's no way the guy could have missed me, and it just didn't hit me. So I'm not sure if that, I'm not going to go ahead and blame the game for it or blame the client connectivity or anything like that, because I don't actually know if that's the case. But that could be a potential issue. Obviously, with all the communication delay between the client and server, there's, obviously combat could be affected as well, and I hope it's not that big of a deal, but it's, something to look out for. Granted, I feel like once they push this to stable, a lot of those lag issues will be alleviated, since, as I mentioned before, everyone is trying to get onto these servers, which, I mean, I think they hold 60 people right now, 50 or 60, and obviously there are many more people on each server trying to get in constantly, and since there's no queue system, it's constantly, the server's constantly getting requests, hey, do you have space for another person? And then it has to tell them, no, I don't, or yes, I do. And with those constant requests bombarding it, has less bandwidth and less processing power that it can devote to actually playing the game, and most importantly, bandwidth, to be honest. But it's, something to be, taken into account whenever you're playing this patch, since obviously once it's pushed to stable, and there are hundreds of servers, possibly even thousands, I've never actually checked, to actually join, and obviously not all of them are full, and not all of them are super popular. People, it'll sort of calm down a little bit, and maybe the servers will be a bit more stable. That's my hope, because honestly, if that's the case, from what I've been able to tell, all of the vast majority of the mechanics that are core to this game right now function quite perfectly. I shouldn't say perfectly. There are still bugs where sometimes you'll drop stuff and it'll just disappear forever, or just end up somewhere that is not even close to where you dropped it or whatever, which is something that needs to be addressed, obviously, but the game will be 10 times more playable. So that's fantastic, because honestly, one of the biggest things that's pushed me away from this game up until this point has been the fact that the frame rate's been so low that it's unenjoyable. Like, even on very good hardware, I mean, I don't have like hella good hardware, but with what I have, I should be able to play just fine because the game isn't visually impressive. I mean, the whole argument that all the frame rate stuff is completely server side, and like if it's a bad server, you're gonna have bad frame rate because there's so many scripts and things. Well, honestly, I've never understood that, because what your client is doing is rendering the things and making you have frame rate. Like, it's drawing the images that you're seeing, and your frame rate should be directly affected by the hardware you're running. And the server, I mean, I could understand you if you're playing on a bad server, there's a lot of latency and stuff like that, but that frame rate being affected has never made any sense to me. So obviously that's not the case, because this patch has completely solved that problem. Obviously there's still optimizations that need to be made to get rid of hitching and stuff like that, but it's vastly improved playability. You actually having gunfights within cities could be very intense now and very rewarding, since you feel like when you're aiming around and stuff, you're not completely blind because you're, watching a slideshow. And for this, honestly, it's made me sort of have renewed interest in the game, and I definitely will be playing a bunch of it once it reaches stable, since right now I don't have the fucking time to just spam connect to servers, hoping to get a spot, and then 20 minutes later realizing I'm not gonna fucking get a spot and giving up on my life. So yeah. Anyways, guys, thank you very much for watching. Go ahead and leave a comment if you feel like it, giving me your impressions if you've happened to jump into the game, or what you think about this new patch and how it'll, affect the DayZ community and the future of DayZ, to be honest, because this right here, honestly, is the sort of pivotal point for this game, because as it's been, it's dying. It's a dying game. Bohemia's kind of run it into the ground by it's their own fault. They've been developing it so fucking slowly that they've broken so much in the process that they've basically destroyed its community. And quite frankly, if this patch doesn't go well, or it gets delayed, or something happens to make it not happen, it could very well be the last thing that this game needs to fall apart completely. So yeah, thank you very much for watching yet again, and I'll see you guys in the next one.